What an experience for a 4.5-year-old girl. And the dolphins, they love her. They're all around her, spinning around, coming up, looking at her, she's looking at them. What a wild experience. Listen to those beautiful clicking communications they do with each other. They're going, woohoo, have a look at this little kid. She's good fun to play with. Well done. You beauty, our chopper's arrived, and it's going to join us all the way up the coastline till we get to the whale shark territory. It'll give us a tremendous amount of flexibility to reach inaccessible places and help us locate wildlife that we probably would have been really hard-pressed to find. And we're making our way directly for Hootman's Abrolhos, and that's an archipelago of 122 islands and the scene of one of the most bloodthirsty chapters in the early part of Australia's history. The chopper gives a great view of the reef and allows us to get quickly from one place to another. Hootman's Abrolhos is on the edge of the continental shelf in the Indian Ocean, and these treacherous reefs and islands rear up suddenly out of the sea that's hundreds of feet deep. Many ancient sailing ships have run aground on them, and that includes the Batavia, which ran aground in 1629 right here on Wallaby Island. 125 men, women and children were slaughtered in a brutal mutiny. What a chunk of history. Hard to believe that this is the first European structure settlement in Australia, way out here, nearly 50 miles out in the middle of the ocean. And there's inhabitants absolutely everywhere. Have a look at this little tacker here. Hey, how are you? Well, look at this. Who'd have thought that these wind-swept limestone islands would have held so much wildlife? Check out this little tacker. It's a skink, spiny-tailed skink. Look how spiny his tail is, right? Which means he can wedge into the limestone. Any predators try to get him, they're going to run into that spiny tail. It's a perfect defence. And he's got his spines all over his back there, right down his backbone. And he's cute, really cute. That's an average size. They've got good grippy claws so they can actually climb up the rocks, no problem at all. He'd rely on any of the storms that come across, any scuds for rain, sit on the rock and collect water. Here he goes back into his house. Where you go, buddy? Here you go. This is one of the most amazing islands I've ever been on. It's dead flat limestone and it's chocker with wildlife. It's everywhere and the wildlife hasn't really learnt to fear people. So I'm thinking that this depression would be where there's water. Oh yeah, have a go at this. Here it is, all right. Here's the fresh water. And where there's fresh water, there's animal life. Here's one, here's one, here's one. Most of the inhabitants of the islands have been bored here at some stage by people. How can I just gently... And over the years, they've become natural residents. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Have a look at this. You're only... Oh, you've got a bad injury on the side of your neck there, my friend. Have a look at this. Bit of an injury there. Right there. What happened, mate? Did you tackle something a bit big? Well, look at this. What a beautiful coloration. But you're certainly a bit skinny on it, and you're all right, you're all right. Little bit doughy, just a little bit doughy. Now, this snake, a snake at this size would probably be, I don't know, could be 3, 4 years of age. Pretty old. It depends on how much food they get. But I'm thinking that a snake this size would probably be feeding on chicks, you know, seabird chicks. And then as it gets bigger and bigger, it's going to feed on the tame wallabies. But it just goes to show you how tenacious a predator that they really are to be able to survive in this harsh limestone area. I mean, there's no big trees. Here in Australia right now, we're looking at one of the worst droughts in our history. Absolutely shock and awful drought. But this bloke's not doing too bad. You're not doing too bad, are you? Well, mate, I'll let you go back down here. Nice and cool and moist, isn't it? The Hootman Abrolhos Islands are home to a couple of significant wrecks, and the one I'm going to dive out, which is just inside the breakers there, is the Batavia. But have a look at this little beauty. Woo! Have a look at that. That's a Dutch duckatan. And that bloke on the front there, he's the Prince of Orange, and he was kind of the national hero of the Netherlands. And so these coins, they're still found out there in the Batavia. Of course, you're not allowed to take them. They belong to the Western Australian government these days. But it's going to make for some really interesting diving, because I believe the cannons are still out there. 380 years on, and the cannons are still intact in shallow water with big waves hitting them. The shape of the anchor is still recognisable near a plaque placed by marine archaeologists. And the reefs are teeming with life. Thousands of species of living creatures moving in and around the Batavia wreck. What a beautiful location, chock-a-block with wildlife. And this is a cannon. You can see the end of it right there. How's the way this fish is having a bit of a rest on the bottom? This is also home to one of the greatest concentrations of crayfish. And this little crustacean thinks I'm somewhere to hide. He's obviously never seen a bloke in car keys diving before, and he thinks that he might be able to seek some kind of refuge in me shorts. And he's way too spiky to be keeping down there, so I'm thinking, crikey, mate, you've got to go back over to the coral with your mates. Crayfish are in huge numbers here, and they live under the coral and they flick backwards. And here he goes straight back in to the Taj Mahal of crayfish land. A big coral bommy. And my diving has attracted some dark, sinister-looking shapes. Sea lions, they're not sinister at all. They've come around and just started zipping and playing and cruising all the way around me. I'm not sure what they're up to, so I'm dumping me gear and going back under to have a look.
I'm coming.
It's like they're just beckoning me with those big, beautiful, dark eyes. Play with us, Steve-O, play with us. And they're all over me. These Western Australian sea lions are just like the dolphins. If I spin, they spin. If I do turns, they turn. And if I stop, they get bored and they come straight back over and get me back into it. It's like synchronised swimming. As I turn and flip and curl around, so does she. What a beautiful female sea lion. But it's important to remember that she's still a wild animal, and they have been known to chomp down on the odd swimmer. They seem perfectly harmless, but they've got really serious teeth, and even a playful nip can end up with a big chunk missing out of you. They are so curious, so inquisitive. I take my goggles and snorkel off so as it can get a good look at my head. And if it kisses the camera, I'll kiss the camera. Who's the better kisser? I am. Christ, she is so beautiful. Gorgeous, absolutely drop-dead gorgeous, Sheila. And she thinks I'm a bit of all right, too. Sorry about that, Terry. Going for the other girl. You get that? She loves me, and I love her. We're having the time of our lives in the ocean, but unfortunately, our time's just about up. We've got to keep moving. Our next stop is Steep Point, which is the most western place on the mainland of Australia, and one of the most dramatic coastlines I've ever seen. This place just goes off, and the only way to get in there is by chopper. Huge coastal swells come out of the Indian Ocean and just belt the coastline with great force.
Boy, Jingo, it's a wild looking coastline. Big 200-foot cliff. One of the wildest coastlines in the world. You can see why. Have a look at this. It's going on.
There's nothing but nothing that could survive getting pounded up against those big cliffs. It all looks a bit white and fluffy from up in the air. When you get onto the ground, you can actually feel the power of the ocean. Can you balance up there? Well, here we are, at the end of Australia. Over there is Africa, but by crikey, it's a long way. Westernmost